One of the reasons that Man on the Street has such a high ceiling is, number one, there's an inherent tension built in from a subconscious level of you're approaching or interacting with a random stranger on the street. Anything can happen.
Yeah.
Is this person going to reject you? Are they going to get mad? What are they going to say? There's this kind of unknown factor that happens. In addition, if you ask the right question in the right way, you will get a solid reaction from the person that you're interviewing.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like the reason it worked for you is, one, there's that inherent tension building of what's going to happen in this experience. But number two is you're setting up an interesting question of you want to see what the response of this person is going to be and why. Because that question, would you rather work at home or the office, impacts so many
quite
different
polarizing.
people. It is, and it's polarizing. So there's another, I don't know if you know Chris Stowe, he's the founder of the Future.
Yes, yeah.
So he's a good friend.
FUTR.
Yeah,
Yes.
so, and I've done his podcast a few times in like 2 or 3 podcasts ago that I did with him. I kind of said you should go and do the Man on the Street format. And we brainstormed on the podcast, okay, well, what should be the question that I asked? And the hook that I came up with him on the podcast is, how much money do you get paid an hour? Because he had a viral video way back then where he broke down kind of like why you shouldn't charge by the hour. And it got like 80 million views.
Yeah.
So since doing that and asking that question, he's like, his performance has gone like 5 or 10.
Do people answer?
Yeah.
That's mental.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But that's the thing is like, it is a polarizing question. It's an interesting question, whether you make little or whether you make a lot of understanding the psychology behind that and the story that unfolds with it.
Yeah.
But I will say, again, I say it's super important to choose something that feels authentic and right to you.
Yeah.
Not because something worked. I tried Man on the Street. It wasn't for me because I'm not an extrovert. And to me, like going around in public on a busy street and asking people, it just doesn't fit for me.
Yeah. I had that conversation when we started this whole thing around personal branding, which we're going to go into in a minute, and the importance or not of personal branding within a corporate environment. I'm going to do that bit in a bit. But we had the same conversation where it was around authenticity. I was in the military for 13 years. I've been a sports guy for my whole life in locker rooms and, quite sweary environments and stuff. And it's also one of the questions that we raise in here, which is around at what point where's the line when it comes to authenticity? I'm from a military background, sports background. I do swear in my everyday life. Do you be authentic to the point where you could potentially offend people, or do you go, well, this is who I am?
So I look at authenticity a bit different. You have to realize that people in social media, the audience you're trying to reach, they're professional content consumers at this point. They consume so much content on a daily basis. Like compared to 30 years ago, people probably consume more content in a single day than they used to in 30 days. So when I look at authenticity, it's more about what is happening on the subconscious mind of the person that's consuming that content. And if you don't feel connected to what you're doing and how you're doing it, that's going to come off on screen in a very subtle way that the audience probably wouldn't be able to pinpoint. But the minute they sense that, they're scrolling to the next piece of content. So I think it's more about that than kind of thinking about it at that level of like, do I need to be authentic? How authentic should I be? Like, if you're not feeling authentic and you're trying to be something else, it's going to show up. Which
is the reason I made a decision to go, screw it. I'm going to talk normally, you know, and if the odd swear word comes out, don't worry about it because that's who I am. So that's one of the reasons we went down that route. So you mentioned Man on the Street, not your thing. You've tried it, didn't work. Authenticity probably was a large part of that. You're an introvert. What was the thing? What was the framework that you said, okay, well, that's going to work for me. That's what's going to get me to 1 million followers.
So when I set out to do the 1 million followers experiment the first time, and just the model that I started with that book. So I did that experiment late, like around 2016, 2017. But the foundations of that have been used to generate over 60 billion views and 100 million followers.
Got it on here, look.
Yeah, it's been used across every industry and every sector. So I just want to kind of like the personal experiment on myself, we've proven it time and time again. So the foundation there can be leveraged by anybody. But when I was doing that, I was purely doing that as an experiment. I wasn't trying to become an influencer. I was really trying to run this experiment and document. So I tested a lot of different things. I tested podcast clips, worked really well. So I went out and recorded 10 podcasts with different people, tested that. I tested like inspirational quotes, positive quotes. I did, some talking head videos in different formats that way. I even tested some political based content to see kind of how that would perform. But the mixture of those, I tested different kind of subject matters within the confines of these different formats to see, number one, what would get somebody to follow, but more importantly, what would get somebody to share that content at a high velocity.
Yeah. Yeah. And we talk to me about that testing then, because you speak in depth. And I've actually seen some of the clips that have been when I was doing some research around the testing side of things. If someone was to try and test a concept today from scratch, if I want to go and test a man on the street concept, I don't know, like I said a minute ago, I don't really know anything about it. But if I was to go and try and test a man on the street concept, what's the process behind me doing that?
Well, the first step is you actually have to study the format. So you have to go out and look at those high performers versus the low performers and try and diagnose what causes this format to truly break through versus this format to fail. And the big thing that I want to stress is don't pay attention to the content. Push the content aside. Pay attention to the context of how they are using that format. So if you are going to use Man on the Street and you're watching Simon Squibb, even though Simon Squibb is talking about how to have a dream and you're going to be talking about nutrition or real estate or finances, push aside the content of what he's talking about and more of how is he actually leveraging the format? What are the nuances to it? So how is he creating tension with the person? What is the type of reaction that he's going for? How is he inserting himself into it? And looking at those variables when Simon's generating millions of views versus when Simon's only generating 100,000 views or less.